Alright, so as you all know, we take our third MLQ for science and math tomorrow, so this is a quick review video to just do a couple checks for understanding to make sure that you guys are remembering and to remind you of all of the vocab that we've gone over in the last couple weeks. So the first one is the boundary where two plates move away from each other. This is called a divergent boundary. The boundary where two plates slide past each other is called a transform boundary. A boundary where two plates come together is an example of a convergent boundary. The boundary where earthquakes are most likely to occur is the transform boundary. The boundary where subduction occurs, the convergent boundary. Rocks are made up of these minerals. This is a picture showing a solid that is crystalline in structure and has a uniform color. This is an example of a mineral. In this picture, you see a mosaic of all different types of materials, and this is an example of a rock. An if-then because statement is called a hypothesis. The variable that's being manipulated in an experiment is called the independent variable. A variable that is changing due to the other variable. This is the dependent variable. Area of a divergent boundary where plates move away from each other. This could be a ridge or trench. An area in the Pacific where lots of volcanoes, earthquakes, and other forces occur. The Ring of Fire. Islands created in the middle of the ocean are due to movement of the plates over hot spots. An example would be the Hawaiian Islands. Volcanoes occur at these two types of boundaries, divergent as well as convergent. This happens at convergent boundaries between an oceanic and a continental crust. Subduction. Rocks are made up of lots of these different minerals. Minerals have a specific chemical composition. This picture is an example of a convergent boundary. This picture shows an example of a divergent boundary. New crust is added at this type of boundary. Divergent. Acid rain is an example of this chemical weathering. Movement of rock from one area to another is an example of erosion. Mountain ranges form at this type of boundary. Convergent. Plant roots growing through a rock is an example of mechanical weathering. Heat rises and cooler temperatures sink. This is describing convection currents. This diagram that shows the mantle having the hotter areas of the mantle heat up by the outer core and then rising up to the crust, and then once they cool, falling back down is an example of convection currents. The crust and upper mantle together are called the lithosphere.